can't climb. Babe, I got you, babe. I got you, babe.
All righty. How's everybody doing today? Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Everybody getting my reference here on our music choices
Happy
this morning?
Thursday.
Groundhog's Day?
Groundhog's Day. Outstanding. That was for some bunny points.
That was a
There
reach.
Today is Groundhog's Day, so I figured we'd open up with a little bit of Sonny and Cher, I Got You, Babe. I just have this image of Bill Murray waking up at 6 o'clock every single morning to that song, right? What does Sonny Phil do today? Do we know? Is it, did he see a shadow? Did he not see a shadow? What's going down?
6 more weeks.
Six more weeks, huh?
That means
Yeah.
he did see a shadow, right? Is that how that goes?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So 6 more weeks of winter, 138 years or 7 years. Is that something like that? That is one old groundhog. All right. Let's get this rolling today, guys. We're going to get started. Again, just check me and tell me what you see on your screen. We see in the Ignite intro page here.
Yes.
Session
All right.
6.
All right, awesome. Session 6, grow your database. That's where we're going. Let's start with tell me something good. Let's start with some positive mojo. We've got right now 8 people in the room. Hopefully this will grow. I do know that we are competing against a Board of Realtors or MLS mandatory orientation for certain folks this morning. So I got a lot of text messages saying, hey, can't make this one, but these are being recorded. These do show up on the recording library. But tell me something good. Give me some positives. Who's got some good energy we can start with?
I was surprised at how easy it was to work being a realtor into my conversation naturally and put it out there.
So how'd you do it? Give me an example of how you did it.
I was talking to a friend who had a coworker that was no longer going into the city, and they're in a small, condo with their kids. Blah blah blah. They don't know what they're going to do. I said, "Listen, let me help them out. Let me help you find a place."
Yeah.
There's a little more detailed than that, but that's the overview. So
it doesn't have to be complicated, right?
Right.
CJ, it's just you just kind of think about, and you don't force it either, right? If there's not a natural place, but you'll be stunned how many times there is a nice logical place, because what we do revolves around people's lifestyles and life cycles. And as long as people we're talking to are living their lives, there's going to be people that they know or themselves who need what we do. Awesome. Who else? Give me another. Tell me something good. One more. Or if you want to go affirmation, we'll go there too. Just want to get some positive energy, maybe an affirmation that you're leaning into today in your business.
I'm going to stick with the one that I've been leaning into this week, which is determined to maintain my focus until I achieve success.
Determined to maintain my focus until I achieve success. I love it. I love it. I love it. And by the way, that just kind of in my brain made me think about my buddy David tomorrow in Montclair. Please be there at 1:30. David Radney is going to be teaching his 4 steps to listing mastery. David also runs a coaching program called Push, which stands for Prospect Until Success Happens, which is kind of the link that I made when you said that, Lauren.
Mm-hmm.
Just in terms of just the persistence, right? Is the persistence. And that's what it takes, right? It just takes that to kind of keep going. So let's talk about keeping going and what we did this morning. We had a group of us this morning who spent our morning. Go ahead.
what time is that tomorrow in Montclair?
1:30.
1:30. Okay.
1:30 to probably around 3-ish. It's in person only. He's not Zooming that. Also, feel free to come and join us on Saturday at 9 a.m. and in the same office, Montclair. 9 to 1, we will be doing a lead generation session, and we've got Guaranteed Rate is going to provide lunch for us. We're just going to be bringing your prospecting lists together in a high energy environment. We're going to be making prospecting calls. So come and join us in Montclair on Saturday morning, 9 to 1. But this is what we did this morning. We had a group of us that got on a Zoom at 9 o'clock, again, Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have a couple of folks from this Ignite who are taking advantage of those script practice calls. We've worked on a For Sale by Owner script authored by Coach Jeff Glover, and we spent some time this morning kind of going through that, understanding how that's structured. Guys, this is the time of year. Get ready for the FSBOs. They start to come out in the spring, as predictable as the spring daffodils. As soon as the weather starts to turn, which is why I had an interest in what Punxsutawney Phil was going to say. If it's going to be 6 more weeks of winter, so be it. And yet we got to get ready for the FSBOs. So we practiced those scripts, and we did some lead generation calls from about 10:15 till about 11 o'clock, updating our database. These are the activities, right? It's the daily success system. We're going to go through these and review these. So let's celebrate some successes. But before I do that, before I go into the 10-4, anybody have anything that's coming out of your pods? I've heard from some folks, again, I'm not sure who is not on at the moment. I've heard from some folks that they're getting together with their pods and they're starting to have some good accountability conversations. Anybody have some pod experiences that they can share in terms of how that's going?
I didn't know that.
Oh, let me let Brittany Pope in. I just see her in the waiting room.
We
Anybody
just had an
even-
intro.
Had an intro to your pod.
Yeah, like last week, and we decided after today we'll meet again, but we just wanted to get to know each other and see where our goals and things are, where our struggles are, so that we can move forward, and made a list of each, what we needed to be accountable for each.
Yeah.
So
love
it was very nice. I'm very pleased with the ladies you teamed me up with.
Well, that's good. That was a sort of somewhat random, but I think that worked out well. Look, the part of the objective of the pods is to start to build a small community of people that you just sort of have some connection with, because it can be very isolating in this industry to be an independent contractor. It can feel very much like an isolated contractor too much of the time. But when you're have a little tribe of people that you're all kind of pulling in the same direction, things are better. So let's keep plugging along with those. Now let's look at our leaderboard though, because we know our 10-4. We do have some successes to celebrate here, so I want to do that. I'm looking at contacts. I know that some of the people on this list are in that orientation. Some of these names sound familiar to me. But I do see Kim Harvey adding 6 to the database. Jane Bradley, are you on the call right now? I don't see her. Maureen, appointments 4 since this week, right? Those are 4 buyer consultation appointments?
Yes, well, that and some showings in combined.
Okay, all right. So for Ignite, what we're going to do, let's not count the showing appointments.
Okay.
Those are going to be more servicing the business that you do have. We're
Okay.
going to really try to keep focused on generating new business here.
So that should be 2 then instead of 4.
Okay. All right, sounds good. So, and look, I see some names missing here. I do know a couple of folks who have written contracts this week who are registered for Ignite that has not shown up on the leaderboard yet. So look, the thing I'll just remind, we touched about this in session 1. There's 3 ways to take the classes, right? You can be a prisoner, you can be a vacationer, or you can be an explorer. And the explorer is kind of exploring, what is it like to do all these different activities? What is it like to really track my numbers? What is it like to kind of develop these habits? We know the 80-20 rule is a real thing. 80% of the agents won't do it. 20% will. And for the 20% that will, those will be the 20% who will find that their business is growing faster. So it's a habit we're really encouraging you to try to lean into. Here's where we're going today. Lead generation is our second sort of group of topics that we're talking about. And last time we got together on Tuesday, we did talk about different ways to generate your leads. We talked about sort of what is a database and what makes it smart. And we talked about how many opportunities we have right in our phones, right out of the gate, and how we can start to expand the list of people that we know. If we think about categories, right? We went through different categories and said, who do I know that maybe I went to school with? Who's professional services to me? Who are my dog walkers? All those different folks. That's what we were talking about from a lead generation standpoint. Where we're going to go today is kind of more about how do we continue to grow the database. And we're going to give you some ideas of ways to kind of begin to think about nurturing it. That will come up a lot more in the lead follow-up section. If you look over here, where we talk about strengthening relationships and things like that. But today we're going to talk about things like creating newsletters as a way of building audience. We're going to talk about things like getting testimonials and things like that. So there's a lot of good stuff that we're going to talk about today. And again, small enough group today. Feel free to, stop, ask questions, whatever you got. Let's make this as interactive as we can. Today's session is one of the shorter ones. I will tell you that this is not a 2-hour module. So I think today we will wrap up a little bit early. So let's start. As we go through the class today, really what I want you to do is just kind of think through what are the things that I really want to understand about database that we haven't talked about. But here's what Gary Keller says in The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Says your database is your business. Building up the number of names in it and a relationship with those names is really at the very core of what building a real estate business is all about. Your database is your business. So I want to take a minute and just unpack that and just give me your thoughts about that. Your database is your business, because so many times people think that my business is showing houses, writing contracts, negotiating deals, and that's part of our business as well. But when you hear us keep saying again and again and again, your database is your business, what does that sound like? What does that mean to you? Give me your understanding of what we're talking about here.
I think, for me, it kind of sounds like building the relationships within your database so that when someone does need real estate help, you're the first person you think of. So for me, at least the way that I'm thinking about it, it's really about cultivating that relationship within your database that will ultimately lead to whatever business comes out of that. Is that correct?
That's good. Who wants to add to that?
It's our sphere of influence. So and we're already established there.
Okay.
So easy. It should be easier to nurture and grow.
And all of that stuff is true, guys. Here's an aha that I got probably just a few years ago, and I've been teaching this content for a long time. And I heard it a different way, is when you start to think about the 80-20 rule. What we know is 20% of what we do yields 80% of the results that we get. 80% of where we spend our time yields 20% of the results that we get. And so we need to be thinking about that and allocating our time accordingly. But if our database is our business, then our primary job is building a community and nurturing a community of people that we add value with, that we earn the right to service their real estate needs when they come. But servicing the real estate business is the secondary thing. Most of what we should be doing on a daily basis is growing this community, because that's what's going to lead to the opportunity to do the thing that's actually going to make us money. But the thing that we've got to really understand is our job is every single day. We're going to talk about the 4 laws of database management today. They start with sort of having a database, adding to it regularly, communicating with it systematically, and then servicing the business that comes out of it. But the biggest part of our day should be growing this database, because that's our job. And if we do that well, we get the benefit of being able to do real estate transactions, which is another part of our job as well, but it's the secondary part. It's a different way for me to think about it, because I always thought, look, my job is to go out there, negotiate contracts, show houses, all those things. And then I do some database nurturing and community nurturing and all those other things on the side. Gary's asking us to flip that around. Gary's asking us to say, no, your job is to build a network. And if you do that well, you'll get the opportunity to service real estate business as well. But don't conflate the two. Your job is to build the network. So when I say it that way, does it feel different? Does it sound different?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it really makes you think about then, how do I allocate my time? How do I think about leverage? Because, if doing this is what's going to actually pay the money, is going to give me the opportunities to make the money, I've got to do this, right? But your database is your business. Your business includes servicing clients. But number one is doing this. So let's talk more about it. Here's where we're going to go today. We're going to talk about your smart data bank. What makes it smart? We're going to review that again. We're going to kind of do a recap on the building part. We're going to talk about these 4 steps. How do we feed it every day? How should we communicate with it and add value for the people in our worlds? How do we service the business that comes up? That's where we're going to go today. So let's start by just recapping. In your database, there's two kinds of people. We call them leads and we call them contacts. What's the difference, as we talked about them last time, between a lead and a contact? Who remembers the difference between the two?
A lead is, well, I'll put it this. Oh, wait, here we go. A contact is someone that you have earned the right to have a two-way conversation with, and a lead is someone who you have a one-way conversation with.
Right. Leads are people you've got, maybe they've expressed an interest in the service or offering that you provide. Maybe they reached out to you. Maybe you met them at an open house. Maybe you haven't even met them yet, but they fit the definition of who you would like to do business with, because maybe they live in the community that you're servicing or whatever. A lead is a real life person who's willing to hear from you. We have a way to reach them, and they're willing to not say, leave me alone. They're willing to hear from us, but they've not engaged us in any meaningful two-way conversation or two-way exchange. Once we have a two-way dialogue going, then we call those people contacts. We have a relationship. They know you, you know them. You have permission to engage them. They may be in your sphere of influence. They may not be so much in your influence yet, but you do have a relationship. And there's a difference to that between just a lead where it's one-way communication and a contact, which is two-way. Neither of these necessarily become business opportunities. That's a third step. And most of the time, it's going to be your contacts who raise their hand and say, hey, CJ, I'm really thinking about selling my house or whatever. It's your contacts who typically convert into that business opportunity, although you will find leads who do that as well. Leads who don't ever seem to engage you. You just sort of putting them on a monthly newsletter. They're getting your quarterly contact plan, whatever it is, and you don't even seem to get any sense that they're still alive. And then suddenly they come out of the weeds and say, you know what, we're ready now. Which is why we don't take people out of our database. We keep them in until they ask us to either stop contacting them or we see a death certificate. And even a death certificate, I'm not sure that there's not an opportunity there for an estate sale. So keep that in mind, right? Those are the two difference, between the two. And what happens is we get those folks into our world through prospecting, through marketing. We started to touch on that last time. This is the lead generation model, as you remember. We talked about these different phases of lead generation, relationship management, and client referrals, right? Where they do business, they refer us back in, we put them back in. We went through this last time. What section of this model would be where we are calling it our database? What part of this? Is it the top of here? Is it down in here? Is it down on the bottom? Which part is our database?
Contacts.
Right in here. Our leads and our contacts make up our database. This lead capture, people that are out here are in the community, they're out in the ether. We don't have them yet in our database. This is the database right here, right? Okay. We put them in Command and we start to think about Command and all the different things that Command can do. We're going to talk a little bit more about that today. And how many of you guys now have been in Command? Quick show of hands. Anybody has not been there yet? Okay, good. And keep in mind that, it's that database of names. It's the contact information that we put in there. It's also the ability to have a goal tracker where you can start to put what are your goals for the year? How close are you to achieving your goals? It's a task manager that outlines all the different steps in the real estate transaction or things that you need to do to nurture that relationship. It's a task management software system. It's a complete marketing suite that allows you to create newsletters and postcards and mailers and presentations and do social media posts. It does a complete marketing piece for you. And we're going to actually talk a minute today about using Command to generate a newsletter and how to do that as a way of staying engaged. And finally, it's a referral network. There's places in Command where you can go and you can find agents in other parts of the country and other parts of the world and send referrals and receive referrals. It's all of these things, right? So Command isn't just this database. It's this entire comprehensive program of things that are designed to help support you in your business. And the biggest part of it, though, is going to be the database. So there's 4 laws we're going to talk about today. And I touched on them earlier. These are the 4 laws of database management. Number 1, you got to have them. Now, look, I'm not going to name names. It's not anybody on this call, but I was talking to an agent the other day who was doing some reasonably good business. Has not quite ever capped yet, but does business every single year. And we were talking about the database that they have, and she confided in me that she doesn't really have one. She kind of has some names of people that she keeps track of in her desktop calendar. She's got some other names in her social media, some are in her telephone. She's got a couple of names in an Excel spreadsheet. I think there's a name that she scrawled on the back of a cheeseburger wrapper floating around the back of her car that she got at some point somewhere, but it's not organized anywhere. And she came and she says, look, I'm really challenged because I have a hard time growing my business. And one of the reasons why we said, hey, part of this challenge is reflective in the fact that you don't have a database. You've got to get everybody into a bucket here. Step number one, you got to build it. Step number two, you got to feed it every day. How often? Every day. It's just like people. It's a living, breathing thing. We got to feed it every single day. My niece, who just had her very first daughter on January the 10th. She had her first daughter. I remember when her younger sister came home from the hospital. Laura at that time was probably about 2.5, and Julie came home from the hospital. And Laura looked at her mother and said, please don't feed it. Please don't feed it. Like, if she doesn't feed it, maybe this other little person will leave, right? Well, here's the deal. If you have a database and you don't feed it, that's exactly what will happen. It will leave. Your business will leave. We got to feed it every day. We've got to communicate with it, not haphazardly. We've got to have a plan. And think about, what are we going to communicate? How are we going to communicate? How often are we going to communicate? We have to have a plan. And if we do those things really well, your database is your business. If we do steps 1, 2, and 3 really well, and we put the time in to nurture this community, it becomes your number one lead generation source. It pushes leads your way, and then you get to service them. And what we believe and what we know and what best practice tells us is this is the best way to grow a real estate business. Because if you don't do it this way, if you don't build the crop and harvest the crop from your database, you just got to go hunt every day. And that's harder. And that's not as fun for most of us. I had an agent years ago in Montclair, again, won't name names, but it was an agent who did pretty good business. Circle of Excellence level, silver, every single year, gold. Sometimes you're going to start seeing, guys, in your Facebook feeds, all the awards are coming. Everybody, you're starting to see it. Are you seeing it in the feeds? This guy's platinum, this person's gold. I saw a friend of mine just the other day posted one of those Facebook memes that marked themselves safe from the avalanche of self-congratulatory messages from all the real estate agents in their social work feed. But here's the deal. You know, if you do those things really, really well, you don't have to hunt. This agent said to me, look, I don't really want to do that. I just want to go out there, and I don't want to follow up with people. I don't want to call them. I don't want to nurture these relationships. I don't really like a lot of these people. I just want to do it this way. And there was constantly, you know, it was stressful for her to go out there and work FSBOs and expires as the only source of business when she could have just kind of nurtured this and had a less challenging time. All right, let's move. I don't want to do a HOTS here. I want to save those for a minute. First law, build your database. We've already started doing this, guys. You know, in Ignite, when we're making phone calls during the day, those of us that were doing that before, putting them in our database, we've been doing this, right? These success system activities are designed to get you to meet new people and put them in your database. That's something that we're already doing. Now, let's just keep moving here because I just let somebody else into the room here. At minimum, let's just review again from last time. What do we need to be gathering at minimum? When we're talking to people, meeting people, we're going to put them in the database. What information do we want to collect from them? Let's just review that again. Anybody can jump in?
Email address.
Name, email address, contact
Address.
information. How do I know them? How did I meet them? Source of that lead source is critical. If they were a past customer, any past records of business is great, right? What else would be good? We touched on some others last time. What else? Let's take it to the next level.
Family, job.
Ford, right? CJ, that Ford conversation, family, occupation, recreations, dreams. I heard birthdays starting to come out.
Yep. Yep.
And I
Birthdays.
said, guys, man, what I would do is I would just commit, just do the Facebook challenge for the next 365 days. Facebook's going to tell you whose birthday it is, as long as they didn't fake it. Just go in and update your records. Commit to do that, right? Because now you got a birthday. Other family members' names, other things that of interest, right? Those are things that we're going to gather up when we're building this database up, right? And we're going to put them in command. And you can either do that manually, one at a time, or look, I've never done this, but I'm told that command actually will sync with third-party systems like Google Contacts, or it'll sync with your iPhones if you use iCloud and just import them that way. You can do it that way. Or you can go get that spreadsheet. You can download it right off of your command contacts page and put everybody into a spreadsheet and just zip them right up there. Lots of different ways that you can do that. And once they go in, everybody should get one of these little tags, which we're going to talk about in a minute. As we're thinking about all this information and how we're going to organize this and be systematic, everybody that goes in should be tagged. We're going to talk more about that in a second. Has everybody developed some proficiency and comfort with at least getting people into your command account at this point? Is there anybody who's not super comfortable with that yet? Okay, if you're not, that's fine, right? There's some great resources. I'm going to tell you, I think some of the best resources that are out there to learn command is through Scott Leroy Marketing. Just go to your YouTube channel. Scott Leroy Marketing does probably 5 or 8 different webinars every single week that you can just jump in on. It's the same channel. I think it's every day at 1. Maybe it's 12. But I know every Monday is a command overview. So you can go in and you can watch the recording of that or whatever. But Scott Leroy, every time I've got something new that I want to learn how to do, I can either go to my own office technology trainers and learn it from them, or I just go to Scott Leroy and I learn it in real time. Almost every facet of this command program is recorded on how to use it. So if you're not comfortable or really sure how to do that, go learn how to do that. Super easy, right? Super easy. You hear a screaming cat probably in the back.
Yeah.
That would be Tom Chapin. I have 2 cats, Harry and Tom Chapin, with a nod to the folk singers. And Tom likes to be on camera a lot. And so I don't really like him in the office here when I'm on Ignite, because otherwise he's going to want to be on the camera. So he's just going to let his displeasure be known. So that's all right. All right, so this is where you go, and this is where you get help on learning how to put people in. Our goal is 201 minimum for every single agent on this call. How quickly can we get you to 200? Because what we know is that's kind of the tipping point of when your database, if you've got 200 people that you're engaging in a systematic way, that's kind of the point where it starts to generate business for you. It starts to push leads out your way. So we're asking everybody, that's kind of a push right now with all of our tech trainers and all of us in the coaching world, is how quickly can we get every single person up to 200? And I do have the ability to log into the back end. And while I could never see your exact database, I can never see names. I can go in and I can see who's got how many. And there's some agents that have thousands and thousands and thousands, and there's some agents who've got 13. I'm never always that impressed with the agents that have 5,000 people in their database, because if they did, and they were working their database in the way that we're going to teach you how to do it, there should be a conversion somewhere between 50 to 1 to 10 to 1. And what I know is that that agent isn't doing hundreds of transactions. So while they've got a lot of names in there, they're just using it as a phone book. And that's not what your database is designed to do. It's designed to be a living, breathing community that we're engaging. Got to skip through the ahas and kind of wrap it up at the end. How do we feed your database?
Hell,
Go ahead,
sorry.
please.
Hell, where do I see the Scott Leroy trainings? I'm on their website. Do we
No,
have
go. Well, you could, but I'm going to YouTube. Just go to YouTube and type in Scott Leroy Marketing, and they have a channel. And if you go
so
to
it's not something special for us, because I know that we have the agreement with.
Well, so if you just go to the Scott Leroy website, let's go there first. If you go to Scott Leroy's website, there will be a button that says training, and you'll see their training calendar, and you'll see what's coming, right? Mondays at 12 o'clock is usually a command overview. Another day, they're going to do something about smart plans, or another day they'll do whatever. That's their training calendar on their website. But if you go to YouTube and look at Scott Leroy's name, you're going to find their channel where all of the things that they've already taught are recorded, and you can go back and watch them on your own time. And because it's all command focused, right? It's all command. It's not, generic stuff. It's really all command focused. But that's on the YouTube channel, right? So go ahead and I find that's an amazingly good reference. I wanted to think something about DocuSign. I wanted to learn something about DocuSign. I can go to my own office tech trainers, schedule an appointment with them and jump on, or sometimes it's just easier to go to YouTube and have Scott Leroy show. Okay, feed your database. That's our next section. And we go back to the model and we remember the database model. On the top, there's two different ways that we get people into our database, right? Who remembers what those are? Right up in here.
Prospecting and marketing.
Prospecting and marketing is where new business is going to come from, right? Every single day when we're working in our database, we're constantly going out there and prospecting and marketing to find new people to get into relationship with. Your sphere will generate new and repeat and referral business by engaging it, right? New business comes when somebody in your sphere is thinking about buying or selling. Repeat business is when maybe they're going to use you again, right? We understand this is not super complicated, but the referral business is the biggest missed link, I think. Because what we know is that the average person, according to NAR, the average person knows about 10 people a year who are going to move. And the other piece of data that we know is about 60 to 70% of the people that do move get their agent as a referral. Either they already knew the agent themselves, meaning that the agent was communicating with them through their database, or they contacted a trusted friend or neighbor and said, hey, I'm selling my house, who do you like? And the referral came from that person. So if we think about that, and we think about the fact that so many people are going to get their agents not from FSBO calls, not from you necessarily, it's getting into the database. Either they're already there or they're referred there. That's why we just keep banging this drum again and again and again. The value of your sphere is amazing when you count into it also the value of all the referred business. So let's talk about referrals. We'll spend some time with that. Who are people in your database likely to refer you to? Well, friends, family members, neighborhood, whatever. How are you sure that when the time comes that there's an opportunity to refer you that they'll do it? How are you going to make that happen? Because that's the biggest missed link, I think, in our database. Is we sometimes capture a good part of the people that need to move themselves. We don't capture the referral business as well as we could. How are you going to assure yourself that you get those referrals? Let's think about being proactive and not just hoping and praying that it happens organically.
Staying in touch.
Staying in touch is great. We got to stay top of mind so they remember us, but let's take it up the next level. How are we going to make sure that they give it to us and not somebody else?
Productively giving information that they need and referring things that they need, helping them, being that source of person that when they think of something, they're like, oh my God, she was helping me with this, or she was educating me on this.
Absolutely. We got to stay top of mind. If you were in our FSBO script call this morning, we talked about for sale by owners are a game of touches, right? It's usually the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th conversion point or follow-up with a for sale by owner before they actually hire an agent. So yeah, we're going to stay in touch, right? That's what database nurturing is all about. How are we going to, let me ask this question this way.
I would just ask. I would ask for the referral business. I think that's right. One of the easiest things to do would be like, hey, you're not ready. Do you know anyone that is?
So one of the things we have to do is we have to make ourselves more referable, right? Number one, constantly be letting people know that you're looking for referrals.
Right.
Now, look, how you ask that question, how frequently you ask that question and all that stuff, you've got to be cognizant of that. You don't want to show up every single day. Hey, Lauren, who do you know that wants to sell a house this year? Nobody. Okay, great. Tomorrow. Hey, Lauren, who do you know wants to sell a house today? At some point, you're not going to want to hear from me anymore, right? But what we have to do is we constantly have to have an environment and conversations going in our database that let people know that we want the referrals. But I think one of the ways that you can do that, and I apologize, I have a little bit of a cough today. Hopefully I have enough water to get through it. One of the ways that we do that is we just let people sort of observe us in action on our social media channels, right? For example, there's another session that we're going to do on growing your business through social. I think next week we do open houses. Barbara Lewis is going to teach that section. And then Thursday of next week, it's growing your business through social. But a quick heads up is if we just let people observe and watch us doing our job and enjoying our job, and then letting them know that we enjoy what we do and we'd love to service people that they know as well, it just makes that conversation easier. But number one, you got to ask. You got to ask. The other thing you have to do is you have to teach it people. There's a law in our bold classes, which I think is just so true in life in general. We kind of teach people how to treat us. If we feel like we're not being treated well, one of the things that we should start to take a look at in our relationships is start to ask, where's my own DNA in this relationship here? And what is it that's allowing the person to feel like that they can treat me this way, right? We do teach people how to treat us. And one of the things we have to do is teach people how to refer us. When you think of somebody who needs to buy or sell, and you have the opportunity to make a referral, what specifically do I want you to do? So let's talk about that. And Eve, I see a hand up. Is that the hand from previous, or do you have a separate question? I want to make sure I'm not overriding your question if you have a new one.
No, the same. Sorry.
All right, there goes
Okay,
Eve.
that's
Bye, Eve.
good. Thank you.
How are you so what do you want people to do specifically so that they know, right? Don't make them guess. Don't make them work hard at it. Don't create any friction. What's the easiest thing that you want them to do? And you may have a different thing than somebody else, but what do you want them to do to get that information to you? What are your thoughts? You want them to call you? You want them to text you? You want them to write you a letter? And want you to tie a name to a brick and throw it through your front door window? What do you want them to do? When people know what to do, they're more likely to do it. So we've got to teach people what's the action step that we want them to take. I know an agent who went on GoDaddy, and just bought a really easy domain that said refer leads to Bob or whatever it was, something like that. And he took that domain that he paid $10 for, and he pointed it on the back end to a lead capture form that he had on his website. And he said to people, look, anytime you come across a referral that you want to make, just go to refer to Bob and put the contact information there. That's the way that he wanted to do it. I'm not suggesting that's the way you should want to do it, but people need to know, what do you want them specifically to do? Because otherwise they're going to flounder. So sort of the next step is be sure we're asking, be sure we're explaining how to do it. Number 3, make sure you know how important it is, right? When somebody gives you a referral, what should you do?
Thank them.
Thank them. Thank them. Lauren, your mom did such a good job bringing you up. You got it all. How are you going to thank them? What's your thank? How's it going to look?
I mean, I think it could range, depending on what you have available to you. It could be a handwritten note. It could be a gift card. It could be taking them out. I think there's, I think it depends on the relationship you have with the person that referred them. But, I think there's options.
Yep. Right. Anybody else? Do you have a specific thank, Maureen, either that you use or maybe your team uses to thank people for their referrals?
Referrals, we do gift cards, and then we also have an event that we invite them to.
Oh, nice.
So you invite people who gave you a referral to a special event?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Look, you teach people how to treat you, and we do that through, it's like Pavlov operant conditioning 101, right? You do something I like, I give you the cookie, and
you feed them and give them drinks, and then they give it to you more.
Right. Right. Exactly. And here's the mistake that sometimes people make. Sometimes people make the reward come too late. Either I reward you at the closing. Oh, thank you. I had this closing. You introduced me to them. I earned this commission check. Here's a cookie, right? It's too late. When the reward is too far detached from the thing that you're trying to shape, the connection doesn't get made. We've got to have a system for doing it quickly. And I don't care what it is, just have something, right? I know friends of mine that have accounts online with Starbucks, and they just fire out a quick Starbucks thank you coupon or something like that for $5 worth of Starbucks thingy, whatever, doesn't matter. But let them know that you appreciate it and thank them for it. Those are the things that are going to, if you create a referral culture in your database, which is constantly letting people know that you want them, that your business is dependent on them, that the very best way that they can return the favor of all the value you're adding to them is by giving you a referral, and then you shape that through rewards, you're going to be able to start to capture this part of your business. We go back to Tuesday's session when we were looking at the conversions inside your database. So we said, if you had 250 people in your phone, and we said that the average person moves once every 10 years, and 67% of the population is homeowners, we equated that to 6.5% of your phone is going to move every year. But it's 10% is the number we're aiming for from a referral. Because it's not likely that the same person is going to move multiple times in the same year, but it is likely that the same person is going to know 10 people who are going to move. And so we just get 1 out of 10. That's the biggest chunk of our database business. Don't lose sight of that, right? And so create a system. What questions do you have about this before we keep moving here? If you build it, they will come. Somebody said something like that once. Testimonials are really great, because the other thing that happens is people want social proof, right? You gave me somebody's name. I want to go check them out. I want to make sure that they're not crazy or that people have had good experiences. Think about shopping online, and you go and you're going to go buy something. Do you look at how many stars there are? Be honest. Yeah. I do.
Yes.
I do. And here's the thing. If you see somebody that's got 5 stars and there's 37 reviews, does that land differently than somebody that has 4.5 stars, but they've got 15,000 reviews?
Yeah. Yes.
It can for a lot of folks. A lot of times people will say, look, if you only have 37 reviews, that's probably your mother, your father, and all the people that love you. But if you got 15,000 reviews and you still got 4.5 stars, you're probably onto something. So volume matters, right? One of the things in our database, we want to create a culture of not only giving us referrals, we want a culture of giving us testimonials and reviews. And how are we going to get those? Well, it's a lot of the same thing, right? I ask. And one of the challenges that we've got right now is we sort of say, well, look, I don't have enough track record in real estate that I can't really ask for a real estate review because nobody's done a deal with me yet if I'm newer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's okay. I'm going to skip ahead to this next slide for a second. That's okay, because go ahead and think about, we looked at what are the things that people want? What are they hiring for? Remember when we looked at that in a couple of sessions ago? What does the National Association of Realtors say people want? They want people that are responsive. They want people that are empathic. They want people that are professional. They want, is there anybody who can give you a testimonial and be, able to talk about those qualities, even if they've not had those in a real estate transaction before? What other things have you done in your career? CJ, I know a little bit about your background. Lauren, I know a little bit about your background. Is there anybody from your previous lives who could say, when I work with this person, this is what happens? They really pay attention to detail. They're really great customer service skills. Can they still give you a testimonial?
Yeah.
Yeah, they can. And for the people that really, on your short list of people that really want to help you succeed, they can't wait to do it. They can't. Right? It's the group of people. You can't ask that from everybody. You can't go to every single person in your database and say, would you say some great things about me online? But there are those people out there that are willing to take a bullet for you, right? The people that Brene Brown used to call the group of friends that if you had to ask them to help you move a body and didn't really want any questions asked, this is the group of people that you would call.
Right.
These are the people you'd go to for that.
Your inner circle.
And where do you want them to put those? Right? Where do you want those testimonials, or where do you want those reviews to go? You want to have a place where you give them a direction. We teach people how to treat us. We teach people how to refer us. We have to teach people how to give testimony. Because what isn't as useful, put yourself in the consumer's mind for a second. What isn't as useful when you go online and you read a review is something that's really generic and not specific.
Mhm.
If I see Mary Smith was my realtor, she was very nice. She did a really good job. Everybody liked her. That's not as powerful as when I worked with Mary Smith, her focus on detail made sure that nothing fell through the cracks. And there were a lot of things in our transaction that were a little bit unique and complicated. And her level of detail guaranteed us that nothing got skipped. The level of detail matters. When we ask people to not only give us referrals, but when we ask people to give testimony or to become our advocates, we sometimes have to coach them on what kinds of things to say. Now, there are agents I know that say, look, I'd like to write a referral telling the world how great I am and then ask you to sign it. Would you be willing to do that? I don't love that. I know plenty of agents who do that. I really want people to speak from their own experience as to the specifics of the things that happened in that relationship that were important, because I think that's what people want to see. So you may have to coach them a little bit on what kinds of things to talk about. You know, in my last job, you know, as a project manager, and you were one of my primary accounts, can you speak to some of the challenges that we faced in getting that product to deliverable and some of the ways that I was able to help you overcome those things, right? Coach them on what to do there, right? Now, where do you want to put it? Because you can put reviews on Facebook, you can put reviews on Zillow, you can put reviews on lots of places. Where do you think you want people to go and give you the testimonials? Because I do believe that the volume matters. If I've got 10 reviews on this site and 10 reviews on that site and 10 reviews on that site, it's not going to be as powerful as 30 reviews on a single site. It's just not. So where are you going to ask them to put them?
Google,
Google. Why Google?
because that's everyone's landing page everywhere, and where they search for anything, that's where it, and technically you own it there. If you put it on other places, the other sites own your.
So let's unwind that for a second. But this is a real estate review, and there's this other company that's name starts with the letter Z and the word rhymes with pillow, and they're trying to get me to put my reviews on their site. Why wouldn't I want to put them there?
Because they're routing any interest from you to whoever they want.
Oh,
If
that's
you know, if someone requests to look at a house, it's not going to go to the person who has all these reviews. It's going to go to whoever they want it to. So
that's not fun. Okay, so I love that. So I'm with you. I think Google's the place. I think Google at some point is going to take over the planet. It's going to be a race between Google and Amazon to see who takes over. But here's the deal. The other thing is that on Zillow, I said it, on Zillow, you can only give a real estate review. On Google, you can give a personal testimony. So all those other people that we want to kind of talk on our behalf, to become our advocates, they can't do it on Zillow unless they have a transactional experience with you. And if you don't have that, you're limiting yourself. Mm-hmm. And so I want it on Google, and I want it on Google too, because when people go and they get your name from their friend, because we have this culture in our database that is going to give referrals, and they say, look, you know what, CJ, here's your guy. He's terrific. I'm going to go and I'm going to look up CJ, and I'm going to look him up. I'm not going to Google. I mean, to Zillow. I'm going to look him up on Google. Right. And when he comes up on Google, that's the first thing that he's going to see. So I see a hand, Lauren. Go ahead.
Yeah. And this may be a completely stupid question, but how exactly, do you put something on Google? Like, do you have a landing page? Is it like
I love that.
Google?
That's not only not a stupid question, that's exactly the next thing we're going to talk about. So thank you.
I was like, I don't even know how to do that. All right.
Here's the rule. If you know what, we do all reserve the right, just so that you know, if you do ask a really flamingly stupid question, we do really have the right to call you out on it and say, what?
That's fair.
But that ain't a stupid question. That's a good one. So here's the deal. Number one, you got to go register your business. You are running a business. And you got to go register your business on Google. So how would you learn how to do that?
I'd Google it.
That's why it's a race, man. It's either Google going to take over the whole planet or somebody is. But yeah, I'm going to Google it, how to register a business. And what's going to happen is you're going to have an associated email account. By the way, your Keller Williams email is hosted by Google. So you got it already. right? That's the email that you're going to associate this with. And you're going to create this business. And what they're going to do is they're going to ask you, where's the business located? And that cannot be your house. It has to be your brokerage street
Yep.
address, right?
Mhm.
You can put your direct mobile number in it as long as you also put your office phone number. You can't just put your mobile without your office number. Now that's a real estate commission rule. That's not a Google rule.
Yeah.
Google doesn't care what phone number. But you're going to put 125, 1 Elm Street is the Westfield office. That's where my license is. I put 1 Elm Street, and I haven't actually done this since I've stepped into the PC role. And I'm not sure whether I'm going to register the PC business, but I'll put that address in, put the phone numbers in. Now, here's what's going to happen. They're going to have to certify that you're legit. How are they going to do that? They're going to send a postcard with your activation code to that address. It's going to take them about 5 days, 7 days to get that postcard. Make sure that the person at your front desk is looking for that so they don't think it's just junk mail and throw it out.
Mhm.
Right? Now you're going to get that activation code by mail, and then you're going to be able to go into the back end and activate your account. And then once you've done that, then you're in a position where you can, again, sort of teach people how to do that review. They're gonna go to that place. In fact, let me do one real quick. Are you guys seeing my Google screen or not?
We're seeing the back end of your PowerPoint.
Okay, that's all right. I'm gonna go to an agent that I know who's not in one of our market centers, just so that we can get. Okay, let me share this screen. Stop that share, and I want you to see what it looks like. Come on. Tell me if you see the Gov team.
Yes.
Okay. So Chris Gubb, wonderful woman, amazing agent. And this is what it looks like when you register your business, right?
Okay.
And she's able to load, once she's done this and she's activated her business, she can put up the pictures that she wants to be seen. There's a place where you can see a little map as to where it is, right? And you're going to see there's 202 5-star Google reviews because she's pouring people into this as the bucket where they get their reviews. She can link her website. She can do all these different things, right? Questions and answers. Here's more reviews. By the way, it goes out and it links her Facebook reviews and her Zillow reviews, links them back in. Here's where you write a review, right? So the person's going to click on that. They're going to write the review. Now, they may have to have a Google account of their own to do it. They may ask them to set up a Gmail account, probably. But you're going to just kind of give some instructions on how to do it, right? And look, here's the other thing. And this is, by the way, this is Chris. This is Chris right here. This is her. This is her team, right? The other thing that's going to happen, and this is not specifically about database management, but I think you really do want to Google search your name and see what shows up.
Mhm.
You want to manage your online presence to the best of your ability. You want to control what people are seeing. And the thing that we know about the way Google works is take a look here. Once you've registered your business, that's going to show up in the right panel almost right away when people search your name, right? But the other things that are going to show up, and this is her real estate office, her website. This is her KW agent page. This is her profile on Realtor.com. This is her Facebook profile. This is her LinkedIn profile. And then finally we get down to her Zillow profile. And there's these other social profiles that are up here. Here's Pinterest and all these different things. You really do want to have a profile live on all of these social channels. Why? Well, here's why. Because the thing that's going to rank on page one is the stuff that's going to have the most content, right? The stuff that's constantly fresh and being updated all the time. And so the way that Google is going to respond to your search, if I put in Chris's name, because I'm going to get everything that's tagged to her name. I've got her business, I've got her face, but and then I'm going to rank order the things that have the most fresh meat, right? That's what Google wants to see is constantly changing content. Nothing changes faster than the social media feeds. Your LinkedIn account, your Facebook account, your Pinterest account, all these social media platforms are almost always going to end up on page one. And what you want is you want to dominate page one. You really, really, really want to dominate page one, especially if you have a common name and there's other people that have your name that are not realtors and you want to push them off and claim that space. I had an agent years ago. Give you two different examples. Let me stop the screen share and there's a question in chat. I'll get to it in a second. I had two different agents when we were talking about sort of registering your business and creating this culture of referrals. She said, look, here's the problem. When I registered my business, I found out two things. One is there's one person said that somebody of my exact same name was a real estate agent in Florida. And she was arrested and convicted of defrauding elderly clients.
Oh my God.
And I'm
Nice.
really concerned because I don't want people to see that because I ain't her. And I don't know that people are really going to think that I'm not somebody else. They're just going to think I moved to New Jersey. That's really going to hurt my business. What do I do? And one of the things that we said was, look, we got to push that news story off of page one onto page two and maybe even to page three. You can't take it off the internet. But I think if I can get things that really are relevant to me and push her further out, because that news story was on a news channel and it was just posted one time, right? And so it's not constantly being updated. It will eventually fade away, but I got to push it away. I'm going to get my Facebook post up. I'm going to get my LinkedIn. All I'm doing is creating these accounts attached to your name, and Google will do the job of putting them on page one, right? So think about that too. Another woman who said, look, this was kind of an interesting story. She said, look, I share the same name as a Brazilian lingerie model, which I don't really want that to be my business profile. And this happened to be a very, very, very famous high fashion model. And she had like 8 pages of stuff. And she's like, how am I going to push her off of page 1, 2, 3, and 4? And what she elected to do was to go to the real estate commission and add her middle name into her license and just changed herself from, and I'll just pick a name, instead of Mary Smith, it became Mary Jane Smith. And then when people searched Mary Jane Smith, she was the only one. When they searched Mary Smith, they got the other person. You may have to have a strategy for how you're going to manage your social presence and how it's going to look on Google. But register your business. Be clear about what people are going to see when they Google your name. Let's put a strategy in place for how we're going to manage that if we need to. And then teach people how to give you the reviews on your Google page, right? All right, there was a chat question that I didn't get to so long that they unchatted themselves or they left the room. Is there anybody who had that question out there still that maybe I can answer? I see Fox has got a hand up.
Yeah, I have a question. What is a standard way of like retrieving voicemails? I know you mentioned that the commission requires that you put your office number on there, but I have never been able to. I know someone told me that you normally get like an email if you have a voicemail, like someone call your Keller Williams extension and leave.
What happens is when and you can put both. What I would do is I would put my cell phone number as phone number 1 and say direct next to that. And then number 2, I would put the office number and say office next to that. Most people are going to call your direct line. It's going to come right to your cell phone. The way that our phone systems are designed, if a call comes into the front desk and then they transfer it to your extension, it then it patches to your cell phone. It causes your cell phone to ring and you'll pick it up. And if you don't pick up, then it'll just leave a voicemail message, but it'll leave that message on your cell phone.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You don't have to go in and log in and retrieve old messages. It's just going to direct right to your phone. And so sometimes what happens is, for example, I have the Summit Market Center in my phone with that office's phone number in my contact card in my phone because I was the assistant team leader in that market center. And so periodically I'll have Sandra or Carrie who's in that market center calling me from that phone. And when my phone rings, it says, I'm calling myself. That's a little weird because it's the phone number attached to my contact card that's actually calling. But know that when they transfer phone calls, it's going to come right to your cell phone. Don't worry about losing it.
Because I've tested it and I've never been able to like retrieve any of the phone calls using the extension. So, and because, you know, like you mentioned, that's what you have to put on the Google.
Yep.
Kind
So
of-
if you've tested that and there's been any kind of wonkiness there, then I would go to your MCA and your market center and say, hey, can you check the back end of this and make sure that the extension that has been assigned to me is connected and pointing to the right phone number.
Okay.
All right, that's what I would do.
All right, thanks.
Okay, testimonials, reviews, guys, here's the deal. Our database, 3 steps. We're going to nurture it, we're going to feed it, we're going to communicate with it consistently, we're going to stay top of mind. And then we've got to create a culture that 2 very important things happen. And number 1 is the culture of referral, and it's the culture of testimonial. And we do that by asking for it, instructing people on how to do that, rewarding them for doing that, letting them know how much we love them for doing that, and making it easy and less friction to do that. We do those things, then our database really becomes a machine. It really, really, really becomes a machine. So this is where I'm going to put the aha. I kept kicking that aha downstream again and again. Give me some ahas into things we've talked about so far. Anything that you're going to think to do differently.
Well, I'm definitely going to nurture my database more. I think I started out doing that earlier, but then I tend to get really excited about a bunch of different ideas, and then I switched over to the cold calls and doing that as a focus of my kind of lead gen. But I think I'm going to go back to the database. I'm going to go back to the community that I'm in and build it up that way, because I feel like that'll be more natural for me.
Yeah. And Lauren, if you decide that cold call is one of your top of the funnel things that you're going to do to reach people that you don't know yet, to try to get them an invitation to be part of your world, then cold calling is fine. I wouldn't say don't do that, right? But just keep in mind that your database is everything, and your goal is to continue to feed it, right? Step number 2 is have a database. Step number 2 is feed it every day.
Right.
Right. And then step number 3 is keep nurturing it, creating these cultures, and letting that database be the source of the making your phone ring with new opportunities. All right. Any other ahas before we keep moving?
Yes, Hal, I would like to add that even though I've heard it so many times, feed, nurture, and stay on top of mind with the database, and that the referrals and the testimonials are important, today's section has given me this aha, the very simple reminder, okay, think what's important for you, set up the system, and then follow the system. So all the same basics, but when I'm struggling which message to deliver to my database rather than asking for the updated contact number, right, or phone number, one thing that I want to start with, if I put it as my number 1 priority, I say, I've just updated my Google business page, and I am making sure that everybody who has worked with me or everybody with whom I help is reflected in this business page. So that's the reason why I'm reaching out to you. So I'm reaching out asking for help, but as you said, if a person likes me, they will be happy to help rather than just to say, oh, okay, you're calling because you're calling. So
Right.
this is fantastic. Thank you so much for reminding
I'm
me.
glad that you these ahas come in different shapes and forms. The big aha for me was really when I finally understood that the phrase "your database is your business" wasn't just to say that if I build this community, this is who I'm going to do business with. No, my job is to nurture the community. And if I do that at a high level, they in turn will reward me by giving me real estate opportunities to serve. But my job is to nurture the community. That's my job, right? That was, so let's keep moving. To succeed at a high level in sales, you've got to commit to frequent contact, systematic contact. I'm going to let Robert into the waiting room here. So let's just talk briefly about systematic. We've already started to talk about this a little bit. But if you pull out your participant guide, there's a section in there that talks about sort of being systematic, about segmenting your database. One of the ways that we really want to become systematic is to communicate in a way that's relevant to the people in our database. One message does not land the same for everybody. And so we really want to segment our database into groups, and groups that are relevant in ways that make sense to me so that I can communicate with them appropriately. So if you go to your page there, and we're not going to spend a ton of time doing the exercise in full, but you're going to see that there's different ways to think about breaking your database down, right? Do you see that segment page there?
Mhm.
Okay. And on the screen, you'll see some examples of how people could segment their database. Maybe the person is a past customer or a VIP. Maybe the person loves to play golf. Maybe the person is a veteran or an investor, or maybe they've given us a referral, or maybe they love dogs. One of the things that we want to start to do is to start to think about what are the groups of categories that I want to try to put people into the buckets of. Because if I go and find something unique for everybody, this is a person that went to Syracuse University. This is a person that really loves Notre Dame football. This is a person, if everybody has their own unique segment, then what I really have is this overwhelming mass, and I don't have the ability to be leveraged at all in terms of how I communicate. The goal is to try to create segments and buckets so that you can create a manageable number of groups, so that when the time comes that you want to send a message that's unique, that it's relevant to the people in that group. I don't want to have to find a unique message for everybody, but if I can come up with a message just for my people who gave me referrals, or just the people that I know that love golf, then the communication can be more targeted. So what I would say is, come up with a half a dozen, maybe a few more, but not too many more. You may have a segment that's potential buyers. You may have a segment that's homeowners. You may have a segment that's renters, right? We know some of the generic ways to think about that. You heard me say before that I used to segment my database based on food interests, because that's something that I thought was fun. I knew people that loved, certain kinds of foods or certain kinds of craft beers or whatever, and I would segment it that way. What you then get to do is, in your ongoing communication, send messages that are relevant of a non-real estate nature just to those folks. And now it feels like you're speaking to them as opposed to just sending them some generic stuff, right? It's really important to do that. Now, how are we going to do that? Go ahead. Question?
The question, and it is related to what Ron Cardazon, our tech specialist, is teaching us about Command. He recently had a couple of classes about segmenting and tagging our database in Command, and one of the ideas was to add the geographic location tags. Like, these people live in Westfield, these people live in Cranford. In your experience, is it something that you would recommend doing, using
Yes.
the geographic tagging?
I would.
Thank you.
And look, here's the thing. On some levels, I don't think you can have too many tags. I don't. I think, that's really lets your database become very rich. But from a communication standpoint, I want to probably create a limited number of buckets that I'm going to communicate to. I'm going to communicate to maybe all my Westfield people or all my Scotch Plains people. I don't want to have so many tags. Well, let me back that up. I don't want to have so many segments that I want to try to communicate individually to. What I like specifically about geographic tags is it gives me the opportunity to, keep current on what's going on in those towns. If I see something on a local news story, for example, the town that I live in, Westfield, was on CBS News this week. And the reason why is because there's a big project initiative in town to create a sort of a whole gentrification of our downtown center. And there's a lot of folks that feel like the scope and the vision is too big, and that they're trying to do too much, and it made national news. What I would do if I had those Westfield tags is I might send a message out to the Westfield group that says, hey, to kind of keep current on what's happening with this project, or to voice your opinions about the project, here's a link that you can go to kind of get your voice heard. That wouldn't be relevant to people that I've tagged for Marsden, right? So I wouldn't send it to them. The other thing that geographic tags allow me to do and this is just kind of a thing that I always used to do when you're going out and previewing properties. And remember, by the way, that's part of Ignites 10-4 is we're going out and looking at properties. One of the things I always wanted to do is I always wanted to make a decision each week. What was the best deal that I saw this week? Because what we do in our database is this. I've got a bunch of buyers that I'm working with, and they're looking to buy homes in these communities. So I go to the MLS and I try to find a home that meets their needs, and maybe we find one and maybe they don't. If I find I don't see something in the MLS, I may go circle prospect the neighborhood, see if I can find an off-market opportunity for them. But what I do is I start with the needs of my database, and then I go out to the market to try to find it. What I like to do as well is to look at the market and say, what's the best opportunity? And then go and reverse mine my database for people that are interested in that community. Now, what happens when I do that? Well, when I do that, I not only reach the people that I've categorized as my hot leads, because when I came across that opportunity and I know they're looking to buy a house in Scotch Plains and I'm actively working with them, I thought of them right away. I'm showing them houses. They're the people that I thought of right away. But there's somebody in my database who I moved into the opportunity section who said they want to live in Scotch Plains, but they're not ready till next year. And that person fell out of my brain because I wasn't thinking of them. But when I find that great Scotch Plains opportunity and I go back and look at all my Scotch Plains tags, now I can send a message that says, hey, Foxy, you know what? We met at an open house probably 6 months ago, and you told me at that point you were really clear that you weren't planning on selling your house and moving until your daughter graduated from high school. Oh, excuse me. And look, I know that she's a junior right now. That's not happening right away. However, when I came across this opportunity in Scotch Plains, I did think of you. And it may not be the right time for you right now, and that's cool. But when I come across really special deals like this, do you want me to at least let you know about them? And that's a conversation I would have that was triggered by my tag. And Foxy, here's what would happen. A lot of times you would say, no, nothing's really changed for me. I'm not looking to move till my daughter graduates. That's a year off. But how do you feel about me as an agent? I found a great opportunity. I haven't spoken to you in 6 months, but you were the person I called. How do you feel about me? What do you think? Anybody? How do you think that person feels about the agent who made that call?
The agent is proactive. The agent remembers about the client, and the agent does something that other agents are not doing, so stands out with the actions.
And you came across a great opportunity, and I was the one you thought of. I haven't thought of you in 6 months. Wow, that's pretty cool. And here's what happens. It cements the bond in that relationship. I'm not using an agent for another year, but man, you're out there looking for opportunities for me. I like you, man. You're bird dogging for me. I respect that. You're going to be my guy. Thank you. That's what happens. It strengthens that relationship. And it's the geographic tag that gives the opportunity to do that. So yeah, I do love that. I love the tags, but you can have lots and lots and lots of tags. What you want to do from a communication standpoint is I'm going to only communicate with a limited number of segments at a time.
Communicate with a limited number of segments at a time.
Maybe I'm going to put people in the golf bucket, in the investor bucket, in the food bucket, or whatever the buckets are. And I'm going to structure my communication to speak to everybody, but through a limited number of broad segments, not the super tiny segments, right? That's the way you're going to get leverage in your communication. So how do we do that? Well, look, one of the ways is through a newsletter. You could create a newsletter. And by the way, you can do this right in Command. You can go into your Command Design Center. And by the way, there's a Scott Leroy video on this. I checked it just before I came on the class to make sure it was still up, and it is. You can go to the Scott Leroy YouTube channel and type in the search box newsletter, and they will show you how to create a very simple newsletter in your Command account. And maybe article number 1 is an article that talks about some golf things that are related to what's going on in the community. Maybe I've got a new golf course that I'm going to talk about. And then maybe my investor bucket is going to talk about, I'll have an article that talks about some of the people that are moving into the town and what's happening with migration patterns. In my dog lovers bucket, I'm going to put a story in there that talks about some sites or some different things that pet animal lovers love to do. I'm going to create a newsletter, perhaps, with a limited number of stories which speak to a limited number of segments, but I can do it in one marketing piece that I send out to everyone rather than have to send out 1,000 different little pieces. Does that make sense to think about it that way? You get where I'm going here?
Yeah, it definitely seems manageable that way.
Now, here's the deal. It does require time. It requires time. This isn't something you're going to pull off the shelf. Nobody is going to customize this because these are your segments. You're going to have to go out and curate a story. And you could do that by maybe following a local news service or whatever it is. But on a monthly basis, you're going to have to find a number of stories that you're going to use to talk about in your newsletter. And maybe if it's just easier, maybe you could find the story on some other things, like maybe the golf course was profiled in the local newspaper. So I'm going to take that hyperlink. And maybe the next one, the investor story I saw was on CNBC or who knows what. Maybe my newsletter is not so much picture and content, but it's here's a bunch of different topical hyperlinks to stories that I think could be useful for you to read, and I send it out that way. But the point is, when I communicate systematically to my segments, I'm building a relationship because we see the world the same way. We're seeing the same universe, and it strengthens the bond. And by the way, is this a lead generation activity?
I'm hoping you're going to say yes.
I'm going to say yes.
Okay, good.
Lead generation is prospecting and marketing, and this is a marketing piece. And what you're going to do is you're going to have to put some time into doing this, right? Lead generation is both prospecting and marketing. We're prospecting based because I got to talk to people, but I got to do this too. I got to enhance it with my marketing. And so I am going to have some of my lead generation time blocked to create these pieces. Maybe it's going to take me 2 hours to do it. So maybe my 2-hour time block on the third Thursday of every month is the one that I put aside to create my newsletter, whatever it is. But I got to do it systematically. And I'm going to just check and see who I need to mute here. I think it's going to be that person. Oh, it was. All right. Questions around that? Eve, thank you for putting the Scott Leroy creating the newsletter link into chat. It's right there. Go watch it. Now, what she's going to go through, because I watched this one the other day, just in preparation for how he's going to share this. It starts with just a single picture and some ad copy. She's going to show you how simply you can drag in other pictures and create more ad copy. Is it the coolest, flashiest, nicest e-newsletter of the world? Probably not. But it gives you an opportunity to get those stories out. And it's easy, right? It's easy. It's not complicated. So do it. Decide what your segments are going to be, and then talk to those segments on a regular basis. And here's the thing. Here's the frequency, right? We're going to go to the slide here. If my button changes, here it goes. We communicate with value, and we know that there's different models. 19 connections a year, 19 to connect, is how we speak to our leads. When we only have one-way communication, we're going to try to communicate 19 times a year. You're like, oh my God, 19 times a year, I don't talk to the people that I love that much. Well, here's the deal. 19 times a year is about what it takes to create the frequency and the familiarity so that they feel comfortable enough to reach out to you if they don't know you. That's what the research tells us. We said before, the social psychology of lead generation is to create the sense of familiarity. Remember, we talked about the big billboards, right? WhoSellsHomes.com guaranteed, right? We know that we're trying to create the familiarity game. It takes about 19 times a year. And so we mix it up. Maybe they get my newsletter 12 times a year. Maybe they get 4 telephone calls a year. Maybe they get 2 promotional ideas, calendar, a marketing thing that I send out. Maybe once a year I invite them to a party. But it's going to take about 19 touches a year to get people to start to engage if they haven't engaged before.
Hal, quick question. So with that, let's say we have someone from, let's say an open house, right? And maybe we just got their information, and as we're walking around, do we at that open house ask them to go on this monthly email, or do they know by essentially signing their information in that they're gonna be a part of these emails? Because remember, I'd asked you about reaching out to people.
I think that's really a great question. I think, look, permission-based marketing is always better than just forcing yourself on people. So I think what you do is when you have them in front of you and say, look, one of the things that I do for the folks that I work with is I've got a newsletter that I provide information as what's going on in town, different things of interest of real estate nature, different things going on in the community. Is that something that you're interested in receiving, right? I think it's always best to get permission first, because if we just start sending, then we get an awful lot of unsubscribes and whatever. And then sometimes the email servers start to see us as being spammy because people are unsubscribing. And then next thing you know, everything goes in spam. So to the extent you can get permission, I'm always going to ask for it. That said, you're asking probably permission for this 12 touches, this monthly.
Right.
I don't think you need to get their permission to call them. I don't think you need to necessarily get their permission to send them a magnet or something.
Got it.
Or even to invite them to a community. But you do need to get probably ideally permission for these monthly touches. And so make it something that speaks to their needs so that they'd want to get it. Right? Now, here's the deal. People say to me, well, I'm calling these people. I only have one-way communication. They're not picking up my phone. They're not calling back. Do you leave a message? I would. I would. Look, here's the deal. Be honest, guys. If you get a phone call that comes through and it's not somebody that, do you pick it up or do you just kind of let it go right to voicemail?
Let it go, mostly.
Most of us let it go. And so at some point, I'll go back and listen. What was the message? Or even my phone will sometimes give me a little preview. I can start to see the text. Is it something I want to hear? If great, if so, yes. If not, I'm going to cut it off. But here's the deal. If they don't pick up, leave a message. People won't call back anymore. Maybe in the beginning of cell phones. Hey, I got a phone call for this number. Who is this? That doesn't happen much anymore. So the message are simply this. Hi, Eve. We met at an open house. I think Jimmy Carter was still the president way back then. But I don't know if you found a house. I don't even know if you're still alive. No, don't be snarky. But just leave a message. Look, we met a long time ago. I don't know if you're still looking for a house, but I'm still out there. If there's anything I can ever do, I just want to stay in front of you. Let me know how I can serve you. Leave a message, just a short one. But it's going to take that repetition of about 19 touches to get people to reach out. When they do, cement the relationship with something of high value. What would you do there? Maybe this is where you do send them a handwritten note. So great to hear from you, right? Whatever it is, maybe here is where you send them a promotional item of some sort, that maybe you have a preferred contractor list in the community, something of value to really kind of strengthen that relationship. And then we put them on a 36 touch. Now we really ramp up the number of touches over the course of time. Many agents are going from 36 to 64. I know a lot of agents that are doing 64 touches a year right now. Wow. That is a lot of touches, and you got to mix up the channels. That's a combination of, I'm going to like your post on social media. I'm going to send you a handwritten note a couple of times a year. I'm going to, give you my newsletter. I'm going to send just sold cards when I have new. It's going to be a combination of things. But if you're doing it in a model that mixes the touches up, it doesn't feel like you're burying them, especially if these are people that care about you and want to hear from you.
And these are all, because I was thinking about this too in terms of how to track this. These are all things that would go into the timeline on command, right? If you're sending out, right?
Yeah, ideally. So you can keep a record that it's been done. These become tasks that you check off when they're done.
Right. Okay.
Right. Okay. So the idea is our database becomes a data bank when it becomes more than a Rolodex, when it becomes more than just a bucket of names, when it becomes a community, and I think about it as a community of people that I am living in this community and I'm nurturing the relationships with the community by adding value in this community. and constantly adding value as they define it, not as I think it is. So I'm going to let them self-select into certain segments, and then I'm going to send things that I think would be valuable to those segments, in addition to real estate related information. And I'm going to create a culture where I welcome and encourage referrals, and I teach people how to make referrals. I'm going to create a culture where I welcome and encourage testimonials, and I teach people how to do that by creating and registering a business online and making it super easy to give a referral, whether it's a personal testimonial, whether it's a business relationship testimonial. I'm going to give people an opportunity to talk about why being in world relationship with me is something that's a good thing, right? I'm going to create that as well. I'm going to reward people for doing it. Your business is your database. This is your job. And if you do this really, really well, you will get rewarded by having an opportunity to service real estate that they push your way, because that happens to be your profession. Don't lose sight of the fact that servicing the business in our mind becomes job number one. No, that's the reward for doing job number one, which is managing the database. All right. With that, we are going to just ask for a quick aha right here. Any ahas and anything we're talking about so far?
I mean, I'll say that just the last line that you said really wraps, and it's kind of what you started with as well, kind of wraps it all up in terms of cultivating that database. Like, that is the most important thing to do. That's helpful. It kind of reshifts something, so that's helpful.
Yeah. There's a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. Anybody know Gary V?
I've heard of him. Yeah.
So
Actually, yes, he is. It's a whole interesting story. I just researched about him 2 weeks ago. So many interesting things related to him.
Amazing guy. Born in Belarus, came to the United States a number of years ago with his family. His family started a liquor store in Millburn, in Springfield, actually. And
It's actually an awesome liquor store, wine library.
The wine library. It is now because Gary has become the marketing guru of our generation. It was a 3-aisle buy right liquors when I knew Gary way back in the day. It was on the corner of Millburn Avenue and Morris Avenue in Millburn. The hospice that I ran at that time was on Millburn Avenue, and I would always frequently stop in that store, pick up a bottle of wine, go home, have dinner with my wife. And Gary was stocking shelves back then. This is the late 90s. And what happened was, with the internet came a whole new way of communicating with folks and building relationships. And Gary was smart enough to be an early adopter, one of the early YouTube channels. And he created Wine Library TV. That was his TV show on the internet, on YouTube. You can go back and you can find episodes of this. And Gary has this vision of not only being an entrepreneur, but he wants to own the New York Jets. That's his vision for his life at some point. And he would do these wine tastings. And Gary is a very smart guy when it comes to wine. That is one of his superpowers. He is amazing in terms of really understanding wine. And he would do these wine tasting shows, and they were very irreverent because that's who Gary is. Get ready for some colorful language if you listen to Gary's stuff. The point of the matter is he grew up such an audience, he built such a community that they tore down that 3-aisle buy right liquor, and now it's a 4-story building. They bought the Kentucky Fried Chicken property next door, tore that down too to make it a parking lot. It's now a 4-story liquor store called the Wine Library, and you can go in there, you can order and deliver anywhere in the world. Gary runs his Vayner Media Marketing company on the 4th floor of that building. And by the way, Gary now has some of the biggest clients in the world, including Nike and Anheuser-Busch, and some of the biggest players have hired Gary now to be their marketing person in terms of thinking about how do you build community online. Tried to get Gary way back in the day to do a class for us when he was not a Gigundo name, but just a big name. And I think he was like, at that time, it was like 8 or 10 years ago, I think it was like $15,000 for a half hour. So we passed. I don't think you can get him for that anymore. But the point is, what Gary will tell you is your job. If you want to be an entrepreneur, your job is to create a community and make yourself the mayor. Make yourself the mayor so that everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows that if they need something, you're the one who they're going to go to. You've got to be the mayor of your community. Build your tribe. Your database is your community. It is your lifeline. It is not just a place where you're going to dip into the bucket in the hopes of finding leads. If you nurture this community, you will generate leads. Can you spell Gary's last name? Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk.
Thanks.
You just Google his name. He is all over, all over social media and everywhere. Absolutely fascinating. Eva's got some Gary V stuff in there. Just be ready for some F-bombs. So make sure that you're prepared. All right, guys. So in wrapping it all up, here's the deal. 4 steps to database management. Here it is. Number 1, build it. Have a tool. We've given you command. Number 2, feed it every day. Prospect and market. We started our database with our sphere of influence. We added people to it based on expanding that idea. Who do I know from school? Who do I know that are service professionals? We built it to the extent that we could. Now we got to keep feeding it every day with prospecting and marketing. And then we communicate with it systematically. And when we do that and we create the right culture of referrals and the right culture of testimonials, it will be the thing that gives you business. Then you service those leads. That's the game. So with that, we're going to stop here. Thoughts, questions, feedback, funny stories, jokes. I'm open to any of it. Give me some ahas today.
I love the line you just used, make yourself the mayor of your community.
Yeah, that's Gary's line. I stole it from him, but that's it. That's it. Everybody knows if they need something, they go to the mayor. That's the role you want to occupy. Any other ahas? Your database is your business. The 80-20 rule comes into play. Your job is to nurture the community and grow this business. If you do that well, you get the opportunity to service people who come your way. So with that, I think we're done.